That's it. The little blue bar has come up to say we're live. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. Today is the 31st of March, 2018. So far, we may have another person come to the panel, but we have Astral Thief from the UK. We have Patricia from the UK. We have Levkungfu from the UK, and special guest, Crrow777. Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
They're all muted.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hello,
Hey, it's a real honor to have you on, Sun and Moon, I have to say. So thank you very much for agreeing to come on and chat with us. How are you today? How's America? How's it nice and warm, or because it's not here?
Well, I'm on the East Coast, not too far from New York. Spring has probably sprung, but we're not exactly warm here yet. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sorry I had to delay for so long, but my private website was having some issues that I had to deal with.
It does not matter. You are here, so that's the most important thing. And you also said you changed your server or something so that you could come on. Is that right?
Well, I was working out problems. I probably won't talk about it in public because it was almost certainly inflicted from outside, but yeah, it's all fixed now.
Okay. I have to start this conversation off with the lunar wave. It's the biggest thing that everybody knows you for. One thing I just want to say is your opening little video says that you shoot it all yourself, you don't edit it, you have an 8-inch telescope, and it's high definition.
Okay, so the clip you're referring to I made a long time ago, and I've never updated it. I now have an 11.25-inch scope. The classic 8-inch is what originally accidentally shot the best example of the lunar wave we have. It shot many other examples. I think I've shot it 5 or 6 times now. I actually forget. I think 5 times legitimately. There was one during an eclipse that's not actually that visible. Other than that, I think I lost the thread. Did you ask me something, or am I just rambling?
No, I just like the lunar wave. It's the biggest thing that we know you for, isn't it? Is that lunar wave.
It always seems to, yeah, it always comes up. And just to reiterate, Jason Lindgren, my co-host on Crrow777 Radio, is going to put a film together to try to preserve much of the footage that I've shot to get the firsthand account of the lunar wave on film, in an effort to preserve, you know, who knows where censorship goes. So that's going to be being done this year. So the lunar wave will be covered firsthand from the guy who did it, me, just to get it on the record, along with much of the footage that's interesting that I have shot.
Yeah, there's not many people who've caught what you've caught, is there?
Well, it takes two things. It takes good equipment and then the rest of your life. You're not going to shoot the things that I've shot unless you're darn lucky, unless you put in 6 or 8 hours every night that you can. I put in 4 years shooting almost every time I could, day and night, and it is grueling. And anyone who's ever sat behind a telescope will understand it's difficult to do for long periods of time. But when I first began to realize that the description of space and our world and the moon are not accurate, I said, okay, that's it. I walked away from corporate life, and I sat behind a scope for just about 4 years to get all that footage. And the reason most people don't capture so many things, it's just about time and good equipment. Of course, you've got to get decent equipment that matters.
Yeah, like a big telescope then.
Yeah, there are, you know, the P900 camera series, they're starting to get cameras that'll do the job. That they don't track like a telescope would, but even the price of a lot of telescopes has come down. And if you're just going to do moon work, even a 3-inch telescope will do you. But mostly I tell people, if you're going to get into this game, you want a 6-inch scope or bigger, or you're going to outgrow it pretty quickly. And you better have time. You know, I'm literally not kidding. Every time you possibly can shoot, drag it out and sit there for endless hours. That's how you change the game, and it is a very difficult thing to do, particularly if you had children or, you know, other things that demanded your time.
And is this something that just a P900 won't actually capture then? You know,
No,
you have to really...
any system where you could like full frame, you know, fill your frame with the moon would do the job. But of course, the telescope is going to give you better shots. You know, early on, I was surprised. People have been shooting in astrophotography for years and years, since the mid 90s when I first got into this. But when I first started to post in 2013, I held on to most of my footage, including the lunar wave, for almost a year before I opened up my YouTube channel. But the thing that most people commented on was the quality. They'd never really seen HD footage in that way. And that was surprising to me because it's nothing new. But I think it was maybe at the point where the camera technology was really getting going. And then as I got into it, I'd been into it for about a year and I started to work on upgrading my equipment. I then jumped to a Nikon with 36 megapixels. And for a small period of time, I had a 12-inch telescope. And some of that footage it's breathtaking when you start to shoot at that level. I got a solar telescope and started to shoot the sun. And I think that's what captured most people's imagination. And then when you throw in interesting things that happen along the way, it really resonated with a lot of people out there.
Obviously, like many people, even all the people in the chat room, they're commenting, I love Crrow777 and all that. So I was just wondering, just for our talk today, what is that lunar wave? What do you think it is?
You know, recently we did a big show on Crrow777 radio about the equinoxes. I've known that they've been misannouncing the equinoxes for a long time. I can't for sure tell you what the lunar wave is, but I feel like I know more than I did before. All these years later, this was shot in the fall, right at the fall equinox of 2012, the best lunar wave we had. The equinox had been reported, I think, on the 22nd that year, and I shot on the 26th. All these years later, I finally found out that the day of true equal day and night was the night that I shot the lunar wave, which incidentally was the highest Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. And they still place that using what's called a lunisolar calendar. There's all these ideas that start to point in a direction. The problem is you really kind of need a back foundation of information. So I'll suffice it to say this. The fall equinox, in the oldest documents you can get a hold of, and it's very difficult to find these references anymore, was called the Silver Gate. The spring equinox, which we just came through, which incidentally was reported on the wrong day, as it always is called the Golden Gate. As a matter of fact, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco is encoding this older name that is no longer used. I think I filmed the moon at the Silver Gate, whatever that might mean. And there are ideas behind it, but the problem here is you really do need about an hour to go through everything so that people listening will have any frame of reference. The sky is a complex thing, man. And there has never been a time in this world when the power players weren't tracking it. I can tell you that.
Yeah. How far does your telescope see then?
That's a nearly impossible question to answer. Let's look at the mainstream view. The mainstream view tells me that Jupiter is something like 400 million or 500 million, I forget the exact distance mainstream claims, miles away. So 4 to 500 million miles away. The mainstream view also tells me that the moon is over 250,000 miles away. The mainstream view tells me that the sun is 93+ million miles away. I don't accept any of that. I accept the oldest accounts I can get my hand on. They're much closer. When I think about the sun and the moon, I think about them directly in association with the place we live here, the place we call Earth. So when you're asking me how far it can see, I can't imagine a good way to answer that question. If you wanted to accept the mainstream view, it can see from ever, basically, because I've looked at the thing they call Pluto, the dimmest star you can ever imagine looking at. It's so dim, you're not even sure you're looking at the right thing. And anyone can right now go on Google and look up how far away we're told Pluto is. I don't accept any of these things, but that's the closest I can come to answering that question.
They have to put that, though, don't they? Because I looked up a P900 and it says it sees for infinity. But that's just ridiculous, because you'd never be able to see the moon 260,000 miles away without some light refraction thing going on here and light bending, and you never see that. And P900s can only see for what, 25, 30 miles in focus.
Well,
and if you've got,
I think we're
you've got
talking.
the moon
I'm
in
sorry.
focus. No, that's all right. Carry
No,
on. You carry on.
Go ahead. There's a lag there. I apologize. I think we may be talking about a couple different things here. Generally, when you focus a camera or a telescope, there's the idea that you can come to focus at what they call infinity. The idea that anything can see to infinity is patently ridiculous. But by the same token, if you stood on a mountaintop and you shot level to the ground or relatively level, in other words, within our atmosphere that we all breathe down here, there's going to be a finite distance you can see because you're looking through a lot of atmosphere that has, you know, humidity and pollution and, you know, all this stuff in it. If you look straight up, you could maybe think about it like climbing Mount Everest. The higher you go on Mount Everest, the thinner the air becomes. We know this because most people who do it need oxygen. Even the oxygen is getting thinner at that level. But if you look straight up, you're looking through less and less and less stuff that will limit your view. As an example of this, if you ever look at the moon coming up on the horizon, it will look really big and kind of blurry. The reason it looks blurry is because you're looking through the most atmosphere you possibly could. You're looking level across our atmosphere at something coming in the horizon. By the time it's about 40 degrees up off the horizon, the moon takes on a much more stable look. And this demonstrates what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Do you believe that the moon is getting bigger? I mean, when we see it lower, it's bigger. Because I just don't remember it looking so big.
I'll tell you something interesting. I think the opposite is probably true. What happens to us here in this world is things change slowly, and we end up all being like the animals in Animal Farm, where we can't quite remember what happened 5 years ago. Here's an example. When I first got my first big scope in 1994, or the mid-90s, it was the 8-inch scope that later captured the first lunar wave. At that time, I was told that the moon covered 1 degree of sky. And what we were told, which was true because I did it, is you would hold your thumb up at arm's length to cover the moon, which was true. And to prove it, there's a movie out there called Apollo 13, where Tom Hanks, a supposed fake astronaut, stands in his backyard, and what does he do? He takes his thumb and does exactly what I just described. Now what they tell us is the moon covers half a degree of sky, and you will use your pinky at arm's length, which I also have done, which is also true. So if something has changed, but by that definition, it would imply the moon has gotten half a degree smaller from our relative point of view.
Oh, I just said it got bigger, but okay. Yeah, you're out there every day with your pinky, aren't you? Maybe it's different for here. Maybe it's in where you live, the perspective of how you see it.
Well, there's another thing about the moon. Have you ever been driving and the moon is low on the horizon and it looks giant? People think it's changing size, and it does a little bit actually. And there are plenty of shots that show as in places like super far north, as the sun goes over your head, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Mainstream science will tell you it's going down into the horizon and more atmosphere, which makes it look smaller. I don't accept that idea either. But my point here is this: when you see the moon low on the horizon, you've got the frame of reference of the ground, and it makes it look gigantic. If you just wait 2 or 3 hours till it's about 30 degrees up, it won't look that big anymore. And you can test that on any given day. You can see the moon rise.
Okay. Lev or Patricia or Astal, do you want to ask Crow any questions with the lunar wave? Silence.
It's that mute button. I always forget it's a mute button. No, I was just going to say it's a full moon tonight. I have this app on my phone that tells you of different cycles that are happening, you know, quarter moon. And yeah, obviously today it's a full moon. But it's interesting to see exactly where all the planets are, you know, in alignment on the ecliptic.
Yep.
Has anyone else got one of those little apps? And if you haven't, I suggest you should try it and have a look, because it opens up a whole new dimension, you know, to see, if you could see the stars or the planets now or whatever, you know, these bodies, this is where they would be. I yield the floor.
You know, those apps are really handy for people who are not familiar with the sky, but I will add this. There is a difference between using an app, which is so handy. They are so great to have. You just point it up and it tells you what you're looking at. But the problem there is when I learned, what I had to do is take a star map, hold it straight up over my head, read the star map, memorize what I was looking at, then look at the sky. And the difference in these two methods of knowing what's in the sky is one gives you a spatial orientation. In other words, when you hold the app up, unless you move all around and use it to memorize what's coming, you might not know I'm looking at this constellation and the next constellation will be this. The zodiacal constellations are a big deal, and most people have been taught that it's just hocus pocus dominocus, which is a lie. The zodiac is how we place the sun and most of the planets and mostly the moon, these types of things. This has been true since the beginning of time. To understand the 12 zodiacal signs is important, but unfortunately it gets very complex because even those have been changed over time. But yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that the moon has a couple of equinoxes a month, don't they? No, a lot of people don't even know that, do they? That's like 30 moons in a year, isn't there?
I'm not sure what you're calling a lunar equinox. What would you be defining a lunar equinox as?
When it hits the Tropic of Capricorn or the Tropic of Cancer.
Okay, see, this is the word equinox has real problems in the modern age. We proved in a couple of recent broadcasts on Crrow777 radio that the equinoxes are broken. If you go back through every account, and we're talking about solar equinoxes right now, my problem is if that we in a massive forum thread on my site, we're trying to redefine equinoxes. For my part, what I will call an equinox is when truly day and night are equal to the second. That's what's encoded in the Pope's shield. That's what's encoded in the Masonic pillars. It's everywhere, all the way back through as much history as we can look at. The problem is historically, the definition was this. The sun reaches 0 degrees of declination. It's rising due east, and the entire world is getting equal day and night. These things are not true. You cannot put equal day and night with the other two things I just mentioned. So something has changed. Not only that, on the equator, if the model we had been handed was true, it would be self-evident that if the sun was level with our globe at the equator, that everyone on the equator would get equal day and night. That's not what happens. And we even found places on the equator that get no equinox at all, and then places in between on the equator that do. So my problem here is to talk about a thing, we kind of need to know the definition. And right now we're trying to work out why the overarching true meaning of equinoxes is broken compared to every historical reference that ever was.
Okay, well, we're talking to a master here. I'm just a tiny little novice who's got more interested because of what we're living in or what we've been lied about. But can I just say this thing, which obviously you're now saying is not a moon equinox, but something similar, but it's not the same thing. When I was asked to witness this, the moon came in sort of north and it was going west, but it was going east as well. And then at a certain time, I watched the moon drag the stars. I watched it twice. It was January last year. Twice I saw the moon drag the stars. For about 40 minutes or an hour, it started to come immediately north and everything came with it. Then it sort of dropped everything off and then it carried on going west. Have you seen any of that?
No, I guess I'm not exactly sure what you mean by drag the stars, but there's a strange thing that happens when you begin to pay attention to the sky. At first, you see all these things that you think, man, that can't be right. And then over time, you begin to realize things like the moon does rotate. Like if you were looking at a pizza in the sky, the pepperoni at 12 o'clock over time is going to rotate. You know, like if you were spinning the pizza, and it actually tips forward a little bit and tips back a little bit too. When you become familiar with all these things, at the end of the day, you still end up with all these things that don't fit what you've been told. But what we're coming to understand in looking at the equinoxes is that it's really dependent on where the observer is. So people, I can't speak to what you see in your part of the world because I don't know what you're seeing. I know what I'm seeing here. And what we've started to try to do is get accounts from all over the place. So I mean, we don't even accept any motion of the sun right now. What we found with the equinox dates is that maybe a spiral motion would describe it, but it wouldn't work at all at the equator. So there's just so much we don't know.
Yeah, because they're taking us to fake space instead, aren't they? And doing all that stupid thing with a car in space and all that, rather than actually teaching us or showing us or doing the proper tests they should do. But this thing about dragging, okay, maybe that's the wrong word. I watched up in the sky, the moon came in, everything is moving slowly in its pattern, but for this 40 minutes, the moon went a different direction, and all the stars, I didn't look round. I have to say, I was so shocked to see the stars moving. I didn't go to the rest of the sky and see if the rest were moving. But with the moon, anything round the moon, as far as I could see, came north as the moon came north. And then it was almost as if it dropped them off, okay? And then they carried on a different speed, and then it went west. I saw it twice.
You should you should try to film these things, you know, and when you're filming in the way you're describing, it's helpful to have landmarks in the frame, because if you just film the sky on video, it's not easy for people to understand any kind of a directional movement. But you know, you called me a master earlier. I'm so far from a master, it's not even funny. I could spend 2 lifetimes and still wish I knew a heck of a lot more. And the problem is what I found myself doing is unlearning so many of the things I learned when I first started in the 90s that the mainstream told me. And what that's left me is basically, truth be told, I'm a bit like a baby, right? I'm just learning to walk here. And again, it would take me probably many lifetimes to even approach any idea of mastership. We found a lot of problems, but the truth is there's so much more we need to know.
Yeah, well, yeah, we all need to start taking notice of our sky. I mean, we were talking about this before we came on air, weren't we? That people need to wake up and start noticing and doing things, because people are too asleep.
Well, paying attention to the sky is a good place to start, because in the modern age, so many of the things we're presented with are just lies. They're just not true. And there's no lie in what we call nature. Whether or not it's natural in the way we think it is, it doesn't matter. It appears to be a perfect system from our point of view. So anyone who starts to pay closer attention to what we call nature, there's no lie there to be told. There are things to figure out, things to be discovered, but it's not like watching the evening news where, you know, if a bird lands in the tree and you learn something, guess what? That bird didn't lie to you. You watch the evening news, the opposite of that is true, right?
Yeah, everything's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
What got you interested in all this then? Notice. Oh, sorry. Can I just say that someone else has joined the panel? He's from where you are, America. It's Horry Sheet Show. Horry.
Howdy. Nice to meet you.
Hey, how's it going, Crow? Really enjoy your channel. You know, I was thinking about it earlier. Your lunar wave is what I think a lot of us really know you for, and that's like such an incredible contribution to a lot of people right now that thought the moon was what, you know, we were taught. And that's like the craziest thing. And, you know, now that it's what correct me if I'm wrong. It's been replicated, duplicated like by several other people, different places and all that, right?
Yeah, I've lost track. I think Jason in a recent show stated it's 20 to 25 people have shot it, but give me 2 seconds here. I've got some commotion with one of the animals. Let me go deal with this. I'll be right back, lickety split, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay.
But yeah, that's I'm doing so good. Karen, how about you? How's everybody?
Yeah, we're very good, thank you. Very excited that Crow's with us.
I see Astral Thief. Is that Patricia in there?
Yeah, sorry, Patricia, Astral Thief, and Levkungfu.
I like it. I like your new set, Horry. It's very sporty.
Thank you. Yeah, I added some more stuff to the screens to my I don't know if it's my left or my right, but I'm adding to it. I'm changing it, and I'm tweaking it. I made a couple things better. I changed up my transition so it's not so memory heavy. It's not like it was like a gigabyte of a transition. So now I changed it, and I'm just doing some tweaking to make it all run smoother. But learning process, boy, this ain't easy. But you know what I'm learning? I'm learning how the actual news does this. because it's kind of just, it's just a puzzle. Once you have all the puzzle pieces, you just kind of do it. And I mean, as you do it, you get used to it. It's becoming easier. Whereas the first time I was working with OBS, I was like, there's no way I'm always going to mess up my volume, or I'm always going to like screw this up, or like, no, it's not that bad. I'm not terrible. It's a learning process. What's up, Karen? What are you doing this morning?
Well, I was rushing around getting ready to come on this hangout. I had a few jobs to do, like change my bed and go food shopping, and I was desperately trying to get back to make this hangout on time, which I did.
Okay.
I was just a busy bee earlier on. You've been up all night, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been up all night. I got some coffee right now. I'm trying to reset my my day-night schedule. I keep waking up at like 6 in the evening, you know, and then I go to bed at about now, and I do it again. I'm like, no, I have to stay up. I have to stay up. So I'm gonna drink so much coffee, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I end up having, you know, because I'm up most nights to continue talking to you lot on over the pond, and I end up going to bed at ridiculous times, and then I have to have a little snooze in the afternoon. But they don't always make me feel that good, to be honest.
All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry, I had a dog that needed to go out right now and wasn't kidding about it.
Ooh, good. Glad you got that.
That's good, then. I'm glad you got there in time. Obviously, we're talking to you, Crow, but I just want to say that Horry has his own channel, and he promotes people, don't you, Horry? You like...
Well, actually, Karen, yeah, and I wanted to bring this back up. This is brand new, and you know how I'm always bringing and unveiling new stuff on your channel first, right? But I'm doing the Flat Earth Digest as much as I can do the old show format, where I talk about new channels and I show, you know, the news, and I talk about some proofs, and I'm also adding the best of the Flat Curious project, which I've talked about before. So I'm taking the highlights of stuff, and I'm back at it. I'm gonna try to do it live this time. So the only thing it's gonna really be missing is those corny canned laughter and stuff like that, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna get some canned applauses and random stuff like that. I have some tricks up my sleeve. It's gonna be fun. I'm still gonna try to make it entertaining, but
yeah,
it's coming back, baby.
Horry has some good sets, and one day he said, can I come dressed up? And I thought, oh, what's Horry going to be wearing now? He wasn't. He was sitting in the space car. His set he was sitting. Yeah.
Crow, check it out. Look, I got the Death Star going by me right now as one of the random things.
the near Death Star, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, just all kinds of stuff that passes me by. But I told her, I said, Karen, can I surprise you? I might come in costume or something. And I just thought about it. I said, I could do this Starman car thing, and it took me about an hour and 10 minutes, whatever. And I whipped it up. It came on like this, and just blew everybody away. And I think it's hilarious. It really is fun to do a stream like that.
The good old Elon Musk's nod to the 1980, what was it, 81 or something like that, film Heavy Metal. That was his one-to-one allegory there.
Yeah, really, really. And I'm glad they didn't put any logos on the car, because it just made it just perfect. I could put my own logo right there.
Kind of a clown show to imagine that there are enough people in this world that bought into that nonsense.
Am I right? Gosh, I can't believe that.
Well, Horry's looks quite good, and it took him an hour to do. So imagine if he'd had even $1,000, pounds, 2 weeks, what he was able to do. I mean, now he's added lots of things passing by him, but he managed to conjure that up in an hour.
I mean, the only difference in the original now, I can see how it's done from a software and a 3D modeling standpoint, with textures and lighting and 3D space and reflections with materials. And I mean, it's really, if you just give me like a couple of components, I could literally have the Earth reflecting on the front of the car, and different other things reflecting on the surfaces of the car. And you would, I mean, that's what seals the deal. That's what really has people thinking it's real, because of all these reflections. And you know, but people, it's Glowbusters did a really good show. I think Iru was talking about it, where they showed you like this photorealistic looking 3D rendered, completely 3D rendered car. It was like one of them was in the woods, and And dude, face the facts today. Now you can't tell the difference if they don't want you to. You can't tell the difference between real and fake.
Well, it's hard to imagine that anyone went out and saw the movie Gravity and then watch anything that's presented on the news and accept it as real without challenging it. If someone grew up in this world completely oblivious of everything and was shown the movie Gravity and told it was shot in space, how would they ever know the difference? It was that good, right? So once you know that, how can you accept any of the nonsense that's put out to you from NASA or anywhere else?
Exactly.
I think that was the film that started to wake people up, to be honest. You know, because people suddenly thought, well, if this footage looks better than the real stuff.
I'm sorry, did I lose you there for a second?
Oh, I was just saying, you know, when people, I think Gravity was this film that what started waking people up, because they saw if that could look that good on a film, how come it doesn't look that good when it's supposed to be real?
Well, they're starting to replay it now. I think, I forget whether it's today or tomorrow on April Fool's Day. There's some Chinese nonsense supposed to be coming in from orbit. It never ends. It never ends. Hollywood implants these ideas in the heads of those who drool, and that's how this happens. And then these other things happen and they're presented as news, and people just need to come to the conclusion that is obvious on the face of it. Guess what? We can make anything in this world on video. We can show you anything. If I wanted personally to show you Bigfoot existed tomorrow, it would not be that hard to create the video. And as a matter of fact, the first time you were shown Bigfoot was many, many decades ago, and they faked that footage, and it ran for so long, being accepted as real. So people just need to understand, you know, you can see all the moving pictures you want, but until you challenge them, you're just accepting nonsense.
Hey, Crow, let me pause you right there for a second. Bigfoot, there's a documentary where a guy, he's legit. He's got military background, survivalist background, military experience, and he's actually like trying to submit some kind of lawsuit to, I think it's like a big city, like California, state of California or something like that, in one of the cities in California. Whatever it is, the guy's actually trying to say that they're hiding Bigfoot evidence, and he's suing.
Well, sounds to me, you know, that would be a perfectly staged setup to, you know, be the nonsense magnet, right? Ooh. I mean, in the day and age where there are so many cameras in this world, and now even in the modern era, we have these, what they call them, wildlife cameras. Those things are all over our world. I mean, use some common sense here. Aliens don't exist as they're described. Jason and I have shown that Tavistock claimed complete responsibility for the modern ufology, starting with the Roswell nonsense, things like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. This is just people setting aside common sense. And in my view, it's better to not believe a thing that's true than to believe a thing that is not true. If you want to get back to some kind of reality, you need to get in the habit of only accepting things that have a basis in reality. And I'm sorry, man, Bigfoot is not one of those things in my book.
Hey, don't get me wrong, I'm not buying into it, but I thought it was interesting. This guy is like really going as far as, you know, making a somewhat professional looking everything, documentary style, Hollywood style-esque type film. And there's also, I mean, just on the same level as that, I don't know if you've seen this, Crow, but I mean, not to go too far out of the crazy zone here, but the mermaid documentary by, was Animal Planet?
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
I did a little piece on both of these kind of at the same time on one of my shows, just to break away a little bit from the flat earth and say, look what other stuff's going on. But man, I don't know.
You know, it reminds me of the X-Files. When I got out of the Marine Corps in the 90s, I was a freelance roadie for most of the 90s, where I really got a glimpse of what the entertainment industry is. But the funny thing is, all the roadies, these hardcore guys, they all loved the X-File. Back then, the VH cassettes were all taping X-Files as we were out working all over Southern California, setting up this show or that concert. And what we're talking about here reminds me of the very opening of X-Files. There's a shot that's almost in every single start to the program that asks, do you want to believe? And there's the crux of the issue right there. If you want to believe a thing, you're going to get fooled a lot. But inversely, if you want to challenge it, look at it, decide whether there's any reality there to accept, that's a whole different world. But if you want to believe, then guess what? You can have mermaids. Here they are on film.
Yep. Yep.
can I just say that this whole thing, like with space, you know, anything else, you know, a supermarket or anything else, if these kind of things were happening, people would question it and something would happen. But I mean, even I, looking through the footage, have found paused astronaut. One's moving around, one's paused. And I mean, nothing happens. That just means it's not real. They won't film together. It's CGI and it's fake. It's supposed to be, well, I won't even mention which one it was, but it was the first trip out of somebody. And there he is, paused. One of them's paused. So...
Well, you know, the whole Apollo thing, this is a good example of where we are now. People would be stunned to understand how many people, at least in this country, do not accept that we went to the moon. It's a ton of people, probably more than half. Hard to know because we don't control the information systems, and censorship has come to bear hardcore since then. But to the point where even National Geographic has put out, you know, on the cover of their multinational publication, one of the last in existence, making fun of people who don't believe in the Apollo missions. And these are telling things on the face of it. So when you come to ideas like all the fear porn that's pushed in the news and all these other things, and we all feel very hopeless, look what's happening in the sky, look at all these things that we perceive as just not right, taking advantage of us as human beings, I think that we're going to be surprised to understand there's a lot more people out there who are getting it than we ever imagined. So at least that's my hope. And I think there's good reason to accept that as a possibility. And I think the censorship on YouTube and other social media platforms proves it, because you don't get that blatant until you're getting worried about things.
That's because people like you keep filming the truth.
Well, even, you know, I guess, yeah, the film is probably what, well, definitely would help get me the platform. But you see, I've taken a vow in public. I will never roll over, ever. I don't care what is done. There will never be a time. We're here in this world for a short time. You know, the oldest descriptions of what this place is, where we live, it's been referred to as the cycle of hardship and necessity. And I love that description. It is so accurate to describe where we are living right now. And I've vowed I will never roll over. I will never stop demanding the rights of human beings, and matter of fact, all living beings. There will never come a time. And if that example is good, hopefully there are tons and tons of other people that say, hey, you know what? I feel that way too. And when we get enough people with a similar mindset standing up, it will be very difficult for all this nonsense to continue on in the way it is. And, you know, there was a time in past history, we can assume, where when people in power wanted control, they just loaded their guns and pointed them at people. But you see what happened, probably, is they realized when we do things this way, it can get out of control really quickly. And the last thing the global players want is to lose control for a second ever. So they started playing the long game, which is about our minds, to influence our minds so we will do the things of our own free accord that they want us to do, to manipulate the situation. So here we are at the crossroads where there's a ton of us who have woken up to the game, but still we have the problem of how many of us are willing to stand up. So that's kind of where I see us right now.
Yeah, when we were talking with Russian Vids, he was saying the same. He wasn't going to bow down. He said the same.
I wanted to say, before we moved on too much from the topic, like the younger generation, I'm talking early 20s, even mid 20s. I've been doing a lot of flat smacking here and there on different websites and other people's streams and guest streaming with them and bringing up the topic. And I'm finding that the younger generation really does not buy the moon landing by default. Like, it's that they didn't even see really anything about it yet. They might have heard that we did, and some of them, a lot of them, in fact, have not even heard about it. They're just oblivious to it, and so by default, they don't believe humans went to the moon. So it's an uphill battle for them now. I mean, no wonder they're putting out like countless, and I might do a video on this, countless space games, space propaganda all over your movies, but in your games.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, those young minds that you're talking about are at the mercy of what every adult listening to this right now does. Right now, if we don't stand up, then those kids, those children, are going to inherit 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World, all those books that were written around the circle of royalty, around the Tavistock Institute, as basically blueprints and projections of where this world is headed. And unfortunately, in modern culture, older people are not respected like they once were. Like in some Asian cultures, you always respected what the oldest in the community had to say. But that does not remove the fact that if these children are not stood up for now on our watch, they're going to inherit, you know, what they inherit will be one hell of an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're relying on maybe the younger people to help really sort this out, because we're already here, and I don't think people are waking up quick enough. I can't believe it. If some of us wake up, then why aren't the rest of us waking up?
Well, it's hard for us to know how many people have become aware, but even something as simple as polls on the evening news shows the programming. In this country, there's one place that creates almost all the polls that you'll ever see on the news. Whoever pays for them can get them done in 24 hours, and the outcome of that poll can be any which way they want. But the way they present the polls is where you see the programming. A poll will often say 80% of Americans believe this. So even if you're listening to that and you realize you don't agree with it, you're being programmed to be afraid to stand up against 80% of Americans. But the problem here is, first of all, the poll is nonsense. It's made up out of whole cloth. So it's wholesale programming. And this is just one small example of this basic idea of training people to just go along with whatever the herd is doing. And this is one of the main problems we face. And so many people probably think exactly like we do, but they're just afraid. They're afraid to stand up and be counted as an individual.
Yes. Some of us not, though. That's partly why we did this channel, was because we were trying to do something, because, you know, it's not, we've got nowhere to really go, have we? Who do we go to? Who's going to listen? I mean, I'd love to walk off to NASA, to be honest, and knock on the door and say, stop lying. But we're left with doing things like this instead, and trying as best we can, and hopefully, you know, this goes out to, and other people see it.
Yeah, can I say something about what Crow was mentioning when they take polls? You know, I mean, whenever I see a poll of some sorts, I always question its how, well, I'm always dubious to it. You know, obviously the results, like you say, it's a swaying of propaganda, in that sense that, you know, whatever it is they want to sway, they'll just throw something up. 87% of people believe that blah 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 happened today, you know, and it's subconsciously in their mind, you know. They say that 3 times or 33 times or 133 times or however many times, you know. And people hear it enough times to start believing it, don't they?
Well, repetition is one of the big advantages of people who control the information systems. Are, you know, in America, the elections are run this way. The news will push wherever they want the front runner to be, and they'll defame whoever the guy is not going to be. But at the end of the day, most people in this country are unaware that their vote counts for nothing, and it never has counted for anything. It's the Electoral College that seats presidents in this country. The whole system is a complete farce, and yet the most educated among us will still argue. I have talked to people with PhDs recently who want to act like their vote does something. And so I just said, hey, man, go look at the Electoral College. Go look at the fact that Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island, walked in when they were setting it up and said, we will not participate in this because you're putting a backdoor to power in, which is what it is. And you can demonstrate easily to anyone who wants to challenge it that there is no voting at the highest offices in this country that do anything. It is things like the Electoral College and other old boy insider clubs that seat every single president. And that sets aside the idea that Hillary and Trump are from the same royal Scottish bloodline and all the other nonsense we see. But you see, this is just programming. And one of the biggest things that I've run into is the most educated people I meet are sometimes the most difficult to even get to consider any given thing. The person I mentioned earlier with a PhD, when I told him his vote counted for nothing, he was literally visibly upset. We talked sometime later, and I did ask him, did you ever look into the Electoral College? And he didn't really want to talk about it, which makes me think that he probably did. But, you know, it's just simple things like this where people can begin to understand how we got to now and what it's going to take to have something different.
Yes, I think we're all waiting. We'd love the change. We'd love the truth.
Well, change is around the corner. The question becomes, what kind of change will it be? Will it be for our benefit, or will it be not for our benefit, the majority of people? And unfortunately, technology will never be our friend because we don't control it. And whoever does control it has an awful lot of power. It remains to be seen, but I will maintain to the day I drop, it takes one thing, just a lot of people to change their minds and say, we've had enough of this nonsense. And then the way this is being implemented no longer becomes doable. I think it's that simple. But there it is.
Yeah, we've touched on that exactly the same before, you know, that we, the people, have got the power, and it's that realization that as soon as people do realize it, you know, wow, then they are in trouble, you know. Yeah, simple as that, as you say.
Well, and actually metaphysically, it goes a lot further. There is a very old, we probably even call it an ancient idea, that in conglomeration, all of our minds, everyone here in this world, make up the reality. And that puts a whole new spin on what sitting in front of your evening news does to our world, where anyone who does that night after night, what they're contributing to the mentality of this world is fear. And, you know, a bit like being a little child in a dark room, very easy to scare a child in a dark room. That's what those people sitting in front of the fear porn news and accepting it are contributing. And so slowly over time, you know, the younger generation, most of them are not sitting in front of the news, but they've got their own programming methods to deal with. My point here is if we begin to understand these things, then we start to try to contribute positive things to the mentality of this world. And when that begins to happen in mass, and who knows, maybe that is already happening to some degree, I think we'll start to see a different world.
Well, hopefully it's beginning to change now. This is the start of this change.
We wouldn't see censorship in our face at the level we do if it wasn't correct. We can logically deduce that the outing of censorship out in broad daylight proves that they're feeling the heat. It proves it, in my view.
Are you talking about the channels being censored? Or just censorship in other places, or everything, or what?
Everywhere right now, all across social media, there's not a person listening who's not aware what censorship has come to be, just out in the open. But you see, it's gone much further than that now. Here in the United States, like the University of Michigan is starting to try to program all its students with the censorship idea. What they did is they invited a controversial speaker who supposedly kicked off a riot or a death somewhere else, but they invite this guy to the university, and then all this uproar happens. And so then they start to try to program the idea that, you see, we support free speech, but we can't have speakers like this because look what happened. You see what they're doing there? The speech is not the problem. If someone wants to hear something and get violent, they're actually the people violating the standards of society. Doesn't matter. As long as the speech does no harm, if someone reacts badly to the speech, then they're the problem. So even this idea of censorship is now well up into the universities in this country, and they're doing the same things at the university that Google is doing. They're working on programming human minds into accepting on false logic censorship.
Well, I think what they've done is they've told us that we're in the free Western society, but we're not.
No, think again.
It's the complete opposite.
Yeah. Think again. We are not free. Right now, in the world we live in, the word citizen could be equated with the word slave. The moment you became a citizen, this idea goes back to supposedly ancient Rome, which is a bit ironic. You know, in the old tales of Rome, we're told Rome was so great because they would conquer people, not just kill them. They'd turn them into slaves, but give them a path to citizenship. If you logically break down in the modern era what the word citizen means, it's a version of slavery. The moment you're a citizen, you have a corporation set up a straw man identity in your name at birth, and you're not notified, by the way. Now you're subject to being pulled over to the police, being arrested, needing to pay taxes, needing to follow so many rules, so many laws that there is not a person living who could possibly understand how many laws are added to the books every year. If you begin to logically work it out, you begin to understand what being a citizen in the modern age is. And this is a far cry from the ideas that originally started to found places like this called common law. And anyone who wants to go look at things like common law will see a very different system that is more respectful of the rights of a human being and less kind of servitude-based organization around society.
That's it. We're never going to be free in that sense of the word, the real sense of the word.
Why?
And like I say, we because we're born into this life where we are simply a slave. We're just another being that's going to grow up, learn some shit, and then go into the world to produce a product to sell to somebody or a service, whatever it is, to make money for whoever, you know, and the circle continues. You go home, you meet some girl, you get married, you have children, the circle continues.
I don't accept it, and I'm here to say anyone who doesn't accept it, join me. I'm more than willing to spend my life kicking against that brick wall, and if enough people choose to be with me, the frickin' wall's coming down. It's that simple.
I'm with you. I mean, I don't accept it either, but I'm just saying that is just the reality that we find ourselves in, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, by default, that's where the stream is flowing. That's where the sheep are all going. You know, they're heading off that cliff. You know, and it's like, no. We have to show people there's another way, there's a better way, and you know, there's an opposite of a cliff somewhere over here. It's getting around the system. It's first of all, that's why I do videos like this, because working for yourself is a big first step in freeing up time in your life. Just, oh my God, working 40 hours a week is not what we're supposed to be here for. That's too much. I know some people that work 50, 60 and more hours a week. You just have no life. You have, by default, you have no life. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the life, you know, a lot of people are stuck on the TV. They look at, you know, Desperate Housewives. They look at all these elaborate TV shows and they try to like live those lives. They try to like live that way, buy that Gucci purse and that Calvin Klein and that all, you know, whatever. I don't even know too many name brands, but they get you thinking you have to look a certain way, live a certain way. And they're harvesting us. They're just harvesting us.
Well, I would point out a thing. What happens is so many people in this current era that we're in come to realize the things that are being mentioned right now, and they lose all hope. And I would suggest the opposite attitude should be taken. I've been alive since the early 60s. And back then, nobody, so few people know what we know now. And now that we can look around and describe the problems, that is such an advantage to people in the 80s who could not start to describe the problems because they didn't even understand the problems existed. What that means is we have the advantage of understanding the problem at hand. When you understand a problem and enough people agree with you that it is a problem, there is truly hope for changing the problem. And I think that's where we are now. And I see light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm not going to let my mentality be drugged down to hopelessness or anything else, because I feel like the ball's in our favor. We're just waiting for enough team members to show up on the field right now. And when we have a full team on the field, guess what? Things are going to change. That's the way I see it.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it right there. And, you know, I find that waking somebody up, it's like an exponential thing. Like I wake one person up, he's going to wake somebody else up. They're going to wake somebody else up. Maybe they're going to wake 5 other people up. You see, and because I woke up that one person, it's a pyramid effect, you know, and that's how we have to think. Also, a lot of people are still scared to talk about it. But now more than ever, I mean, oh God, just since really the end of 2017 with the Flat Earth Conference, with Robbie Davidson's conference, and until still, look at FE Core, look at the Flat Convex Earth documentary. I mean, look how much momentum we're still gaining and gaining more momentum. There's still the Mark and Patricia documentary that's going to come out, the film festival thing. I mean, there's all this stuff coming out. It's really exciting. It's not slowing down. It's, you know, yeah, we're going to have a full team. And you know what I thought about earlier? We were talking about this, you know, it's 2015 is when I woke up. I am just starting to talk about it pretty well. It's been about 2 years. And believe me, I'm pretty bad when it comes to debate. So I'm slower to want to debate and slower to want to get to talking about it. But let's say other people are kind of like me there, and they are not comfortable yet. So that might take them 2 more years. If they discovered it last month, we're not going to see these people making YouTube channels maybe for the next year or 2. Let's just say, like, you know, So look at yeah, we're developing a team. All right, that's for sure. I found a channel today. I think it was Flat Earth Brothers. He started the channel. He said in his little bio of his channel, he's like, I started this channel to make fun of Flat Earth, but I really couldn't laugh for too long, so now I'm on their side. Now I'm spreading the Flat Earth.
Well, you're bringing up a critical point here. I'm sorry to step on you, but I wanted to make this observation.
I'm done.
One thing that I have seen, and the Flat Earth movement is a good example, and while I wholly support any individual in this world that's going to challenge the reality that we find ourselves in, there's been a programming going on for some time. It was first driven into us with politics in the modern age, the idea of blue and red and Fox News or CNN, all many things to force people to choose a side. And what you see when flat earth or flat tards talk to globe tards, a fight ensues. And one of the most critical things we need to get to is to understand that opposing point of views in my earlier life were a reason to have a conversation and to debate as adults. And truly, it was a better way. With all the technical media broadcasts that has programmed so many of us that if you don't think like I do, we need to fight, I would point out the following. On my podcast, Jason and I did a lot of work on the Tavistock Institute. One of the main rules in the Tavistock social engineering playbook is to remove variety. Whenever you see a person with a different point of view than yourself, and you attack them, you are working from the Tavistock playbook because you are removing variety. Every person that is a different race, a different religion, has a different point of view, you should embrace that with all your might, because social engineering will not work where there is a lot of variety. So I just want to point that out. So this is part of the reason why I will never join Flat Earth or any other group, is because I want to remain independent, and I will never, fight in public or do these things that we've all been programmed into. And I just wanted to get that out on the table.
Can I say something then? We're a Flat Earth channel when we don't argue either. We don't want arguing. If people have problems, like you're right, they have problems. But as this channel, we don't argue. We don't want that. We have to do this together. Otherwise, there's no point.
Right.
That's what I think. And I did say to you before we came on air that for me, Flat Earth isn't just about what we're supposed to be living on. It includes everything, all the lies, history, 9/11, chemtrails. It includes everything. So, yeah, because it's about lying so much to us.
Well, it's an amazing thing when you come to grips with some semblance of reality, when you begin to understand the grand scheme of things. You begin to recognize and look at your past life and laugh at the ignorance you had at that point. You laugh at yourself, or at least I did. Simple things like in the 80s, there was a band called Styx. They put out an album. The title of that album was The Grand Illusion. In 1999, there's a band called the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They informed us correctly that space may be the final frontier, but it was made in a Hollywood basement. There are endless examples of this through time where the employers of the illusion put these hints out. And in their view, if we're so stupid we can't recognize we're being told the truth, then we get what we get. We get what we deserve. That's their twisted logic. And so truly, what a big part of this game is paying attention, challenging information, and quit missing the details that have been sliding by you for so many decades. And once you get in the habit of doing these things, then it just kind of comes to you that there's this whole other reality that it's almost like you haven't been able to see your whole life. You've been partially blind, and all of a sudden the world is in Technicolor. And then of course you'll go through probably something similar to the 5 stages of grief. You'll deny it at first, then you'll be mad, then you'll start to come to grips with this whole idea. But on the tail end of that, you get beyond all these things that happen to a human being that's beginning to realize what's gone on here, and then you're playing in the game. And again, I would suggest there are a lot more of us on the field than most of us imagine, and I think the censorship alone proves that as correct.
Yeah, the other thing as well, I just feel is that if you've got to go this far to lie to the people, and make them believe things like space are real when they're not, then what you're doing is you're making people believe in a reality that doesn't exist. And that is taking their freedom away, because they're all going rocket, space, the moon, whatever, and none of it's true. I call that, like, it's just control. It's completely controlling the people, taking their choice away, because, you know, we don't want to know about fake things, do we? Really?
Well, one of the big things to keep in mind is that if you're forced to make a decision in this life, and people would be surprised to understand, I call it having your mind taken to the crossroads. At the crossroads, you have to make a decision. There is no other choice. And every time you're given information, you have been in fact taken to the crossroads. At the crossroads, you can turn left, you can turn right, you can go forward, or you can go back the way you came. If you want to talk about the fifth element, maybe you could just sit there till you die. So maybe there's 4 or 5 possibilities, but in fact, you have to make a choice. Even if you decide not to make a choice, you have still made a choice. Every time information is put in front of you, you are taken to that crossroad. And here's how it works. If you make the wrong decision and you start to believe in the wrong things, you move into a fantasy-based reality. The problem with living in a fantasy-based reality where you believe in a bunch of things that aren't correct is you can't make good decisions. If you put 2 people in a room and they both have to make a decision, one is given good information, the other person is given false information, which decision is going to be helpful to that person? You can see where this goes. So these are critical things to keep in mind next time you see something and make a snap judgment. Sure, I'll believe in that thing. I don't believe in anything. And the things that I do accept as correct, I'm so ready to throw those things out the window. I can't even tell you. If I find anything out by the end of this day that challenges something I have accepted, that thing I've accepted is going in the waste bin. And I'll either save it for later till I know more, but I sure as hell will not accept it as fact, because that is how you get drugged to the crossroad, and that is how you get pulled into a fantasy-based reality. And every decision made after that is based on nonsense.
Yeah. You're very down to earth, aren't you? That's what I feel. Very down.
Well,
that's a really strange thing, isn't it? After all we've been talking about, but
well,
yeah.
I'll tell you what. Someone just mentioned this earlier, that the main thing about this age is it's about common sense. And I said, man, that is such a great description. It is about common sense. We've all been trained to believe in mermaids and aliens and some stupid nuclear weapon that doesn't exist, because for sure there's a red button someone could push and destroy this world. It's all nonsense. When we get back to common sense, these things no longer affect us, you see. So there's a lot to be said for common sense.
What's your take on, like, 2 countries got alerts on their telephone saying a nuclear bomb was incoming? It's nasty, isn't it?
It's a lie. We did shows. There was a channel called Hoaxbuster on YouTube who did what I consider to be the Academy Award winning clip of the whole time I've been on YouTube. Best clip ever. It's 3 minutes and proves that Marie Curie is mercury encoded, and that is the foundation for nuclear anything. Nukes do not exist. Jason and I went at it after on Crrow777 Radio to show you that everywhere you've ever been told a nuclear disaster has happened or a bomb's been dropped, you've been lied to. There is no red button in this world, and nukes do not exist as they're described. And right now, they're trying to convince the world that North Korea, this place that no one can go, is going to nuke the west coast of America. And by the way, they're going to throw us some Red Scare Russians in for good measure. It's all nonsense, man. And when you grow up, that nonsense doesn't affect you anymore.
But the many that will believe that it's real.
Well, the many that believe that it's real, go ahead and drop me an email the day we get nuked, okay? Because I've got all my life to wait, and that email will never arrive in my lifetime. Nukes do not exist as they are described. There is no red button. There is no bomb that can destroy our world, period. That's all there is to it. It's all based on Marie Curie and Marie Curie, Mercury, get it? The same old game we always see is the hoax that made it all happen. If anyone listening to this wants to get the best 3-minute education ever, go look up Hoaxbuster and look up the Marie Curie clip. It will even show you how she's encoded into the alchemical mercury symbol, and even her husband getting killed at the crossroads, the whole deal. It's all there, man.
Wow. Actually, do you know something? That's quite amazing, because on our panel right now, who's just turned up, is Jay. Jay's into the word game, aren't you, Jay? Jay, do you want to say hello? Jay, we can't hear you. You're going to have to do it from your phone. We can't hear you.
See him, don't hear him.
Yeah, Jay, you're going to have to come in on your phone. There, he'll come back in a second.
Well, anyhow, it's nice
Can
to
I
meet.
ask you this question then? What do you think the moon is?
Well, from our point of view, it's an illusion, but not for the reasons most people will think, having heard that. It's an illusion because we've been convinced it's a rocket space at just over 250,000 miles. I don't accept any of that. It's much closer than we think. And in my view, it likely emanates its own light, at least to some degree. And even if we could get there, I don't believe you could walk on it like a rock in space. Other than that, I can't tell you a lot more. Again, these are things that take one hell of a foundational background, and it requires getting into the oldest ideas that we've been handed from ancient
Not a planet,
accounts.
though, is it?
It's what?
Not a planet.
There's no such thing in planets as the way that they've been described to us. We'll never go to a place called Mars. These things are not possible. Nothing leaves our world, in my view. This is the environment we're born into, naked, I might add. This thing we call nature, this natural system, whether it is natural in the way we think or not. We're born into this seemingly perfect system, and we can't leave here. There is a hard, fast boundary up there of some sort. Religious people like to refer to it as the firmament. Some of the old Hermetic ideas is that it's plasma, superheated plasma. There are many ideas. Some people like to describe it as a dome. I don't mind any of those descriptions because it's recognizing what I consider to be very likely the truth, that we can't get above our atmosphere, not man or machine. This is our environment that we're growing up in here. This is our boot camp, or however you want to view our existence in this world. And you can logically deduce these things when you come to take apart the moon landing. Why would they lie about such a thing? Why are all the records of this incredible endeavor, most amazing thing people have ever done, are all lost? The telemetry is lost. And then this nonsense of kicking the Mars idea down the road, you can logically deduce that what I'm saying here has merit. And then you can challenge it and come to your own conclusions there.
I think everybody on this panel and everybody listening completely agrees with you, Crow.
Well, it's one thing to agree, but everyone listening should challenge these things for themselves, because a thing is said does not make it correct. And even if a thing is correct, it may not be correct for everybody. We're all at different places in this little cycle of necessity. So I would suggest that it does a person good to challenge all information, regardless of source or authority.
I can't even work out what we're in anymore. I mean, I've watched high altitude balloons go up at night, and it looks like they're in the stars. I'm not saying all the stars, but there are some stars below the camera. And the balloon's up like 17 miles. So these stars are quite close. Yeah, everybody gets the stars. Maybe in America, they're more stretched. The Big Dipper's bigger than I see it. The Big Dipper goes round my house, around and corners, and it bends and it does things. But I just find it incredible that I see them and you see them, and they're only miles above our head.
Well, it's someday that hopefully will become demonstrable, so that it's no longer arguable to the at least intelligent among us. And yeah, you see these old, like the woodcut from Flamel. You see these things, and every person has like a similar kind of primitive reaction to like that woodcut by Flamel. Shows the little man poking his head out of where we live here on Earth, and there's something about what's being conveyed there. None of us can quite put our thumb on it, but there's something there. These archetypes go back, and apparently our minds share archetypes. These are some of the things people like Freud and Jung showed to be true, and then taught places like Tavistock how to misuse that information. But at the base of it, there are certain things we will experience where we understand there's something there, and we can't quite describe it or put our finger on it. That's kind of where we are in the awakening process. It's a bit like we're in diapers, but we're getting ready to stand on two legs and throw the diapers aside. That's kind of where I feel like most of us are at. pretty quick here, we're going to be walking upright and saying, you know, all right, now I'm a force to be reckoned with.
Good. That sounds good to me. I'm just doing a shout out. I can just see that Rich Thrive and Survive is in the chat room as well. So hello, Rich, and everybody in the chat room, by the way. Jay, are you there now?
Can you hear me?
Yay, we can hear you.
I can.
Is it clear? Good. Well, first of all, I want to say it's an honor. Crrow777, I'm a big fan. Santos and I are very close. He's a big influence. And to chime in about you talking about the fantasy world, when we look at Freemasonry, we have people like Charles Dion, and he invented what is called the transvestite movement, where he was exiled from France and came back as a woman, and then became this legendary woman who so-called did things. But what happens with this, we're living in a theater of illusions where they give you Fantasia and Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is M&M for Mary Magdalene. Like you have the M's in your palm. Your lines in your hand make the M for magnetism. So what my brother is talking about is like the performance of illusion is very important for people that like to make us delusional in this demented dimension of demons. And today it's really important to look at words. So fire in etymology means a dome. It relates to a dome in etymology. This will really help people who are just trying to understand the simplicity of what we have as Earth. Now, Earth is a disc. When you see the Statue of Liberty, she's holding a torch, a disc, and then the fire. That disc around the Mount Meru spinal cord, that would be the Earth, and the fire would be the dome, like Prometheus, Rom, dome, all related. The fire is creating the dome over the flat plane. And so when we see these things like base and ball, basketball, base etymology means flat. Once again, ball relates to a dome. So the people who are giving us information about the ball, they're very good at taking our brain to the left side, the L, the elite side, people who like applications and technology, as opposed to the spirit brain. Can you all still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. As opposed to the spirit brain, I'm a dance teacher. I just wanted to add in quickly about ballet. Now, in ballet, we have 5 major positions. We have 5 elements, and of course, we have the 5 geometric shapes. But what I want to focus on is the ballerina wears a tutu. Now, how does the tutu relate to Toronto, Prometheus, and the Statue of Liberty? It's very simple. When you see a ballerina, you will see her body in the tutu. That's her body aligned with the tutu is Mount Meru. The tutu is the disc around her waist, which would be a symbol of the flat earth. When she puts her hands in what is called 5th position, which is a circle over her head, that's the 5th element, the dodeca. That would be your dome in ballet. They're showing you through symbolism physically that it's a symbol of the ankh or of the crucifix. Simply, you're doming your hands over your head. Hence your bun head. Okay. The bun is a dome. It arcs over the female's head, and her clavicle is flat, and her head is the dome. So Jay. Yeah, so basically the torch of Prometheus. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Jay, just let Crow.
Hello? Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think of all that then, Crow? Because he sees words and puts them together and breaks them down, and he likes syncretism and.
Well, there's no doubt. Language has meaning, doesn't it? And we're seeing many people now begin to take it apart. At the base of what he started with, I don't think it's, no one can argue that. All the world is a stage. And at the base of what he started with, he was pointing out that, in fact, all the world is a stage. These are not deniable things in my world. And the meaning of language, I don't think that's deniable either. The problem is we all get taught to speak, but we really don't ever get taught to understand the meaning of the words we're using to speak with. So, you know, I see many people going at language in this way. There are a lot of people who are showing the maritime crossovers that have to do with law in a similar way. So, yeah, I think looking at our world in this way has merit, and I think it will teach people a lot of different things.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Can I ask you something else then? Before we came on, you were talking about a lot of people don't realize that the moon rotates.
Right. Anyone can see this. If you go out and look at the moon and take a picture of it and then wait an hour or two and take another picture of it, you'll see that it's rotated. In other words, what you see at the 12 o'clock position will have rotated downwards, unless you're in the other hemisphere. And so these are just a lot of people who start to pay attention, see things like this, and they think it's something that they shouldn't be seeing. And it's just part of becoming familiar. And you know, even what your previous guest was talking about, in my view, that all relates back to the sky. There are very few things in this world that don't either relate to the physical plane we're on or the sky above us. All these things are relatable. But yes, the moon, I forget what it is, 15 degrees over 6 hours. I don't even know if I've got that right. It's been so long since I looked at it, but something like that.
And you know, I was, you know, what about the pictures? You obviously, we have photographers that come on. Robert Forsh is one, Dave Marsh is another, Stan Smith is another. People who come onto our group, and they all film the dark moon.
You mean the portion that's blacked out?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. I've said for a long time that I think during a new moon, what's called a new moon, or a very young moon, if you can ever catch it at a time when there's a bright object that's supposedly being occulted, you can demonstrate that the moon is see-through at these times. And as your previous guest was pointing out, words have meaning. Why do we call it a new moon or a young moon? Why isn't it the same old moon we've been looking at for thousands of years? Nonetheless, it is called a new moon or a young moon. And there are plenty of accounts, even back into the Royal Astronomical Societies, where people were defamed from saying things like, I saw a planet go behind the moon when it was new or very young, and I could still see it. It appeared as a black disk. So I think there's real progress to be made in these filming at these times too, the darkened portion of new or very young moons. And with my full spectrum rig, I can light up any portion of the moon at any time. I have not yet had a chance to aim it at what's called a new moon. And it's kind of difficult to film a new moon because you can't really see where it's at.
Right. And before we came on as well, you were also saying that the sun is the pivotal thing here.
I think the sun, yeah, I think the sun is very likely to give us one of the next big jumps forward. You know, in the same way a lot of people feel like the lunar wave kind of gave a kick in a certain direction. At very least, it got a lot of people looking up. I think the sun is going to be the main kind of keystone in the arch we're all looking at here. There's a lot to be discovered there. People out there claiming it's artificial, people claiming other things. I don't make any claims. I can tell you it's misdescribed. I can tell you the equinoxes are broken. I can tell you a lot of things. But at the end of the day, what I need to tell you is we all need to know more.
Yeah. And yeah, because some people pick the moon, some people pick the sun.
Well, you can't go wrong as long as you're looking up and filming and challenging your world. I think you're doing the right thing.
And so could you explain a few of the things that you're doing now then to the chat room and to anybody who's listening for your channel?
As I mentioned earlier, Jason is starting to put together a film to try to preserve what's gone on since the 2012 filming of the first lunar wave and many of the things I shot in between and what's happened since then. We're putting out a weekly podcast, goes live every Thursday on Crrow777Radio.com, where we're basically just challenging the world around us almost every time and trying to instill in people a way to think about the world using common sense and challenging information instead of just accepting information and believing it. Other than that, it's starting to warm up here, and I do have help again, so people can expect to see more scope work as we head into a warmer part of spring.
Do you see this bit about us getting cold? What do you think about, they say that we're going into an ice age? What's your take on that one?
They can say anything they want. They can tell us we've got global warming. They can tell us we're going into an ice age. And in my lifetime, I've heard both those things. In the 70s, it was an ice age we were going into. Now this nonsense about global warming. We live in a cyclical place. weather is part of that cycle. The only difference I can see is that now we see people manipulating the weather with chemtrails, with electromagnetic energy, in any number of ways. So there's that to consider. Hard to know what man playing with weather might do in the long run, but for the most part, the weather in our world is driven by cycles of time, and that's been documented back to the oldest things we can see.
I was watching someone today talking about chemtrails, and it was a bit like he said, if you put in the search engine about that, it only brings up so many things. But what it is you need to know all the other words which they're using now, which they're actually doing, and then you look up those, and it brings up a lot more information with this chemtrailing.
Well, it's a funny thing, because when I first started filming the chem planes in San Diego back in the day, many, many years ago, most people who saw the footage said, you don't know what you're doing. These are contrails. And I said, you're absolutely right, because you're being conned into believing they're just trails left by a plane. They are in fact contrails. But actually, as time went on, more and more people caught on to what was going on. But recently, we've had a complete turnabout by those in power. They now openly admit that they've been modifying weather, and now they're telling us, but we can't stop or we'll all die. So this is the nonsense game, man. We're all like the frogs in boiling water here. You know, back near the end of the 90s, I was filming chemtrails trying to get people, well, actually, that's not right. I didn't put up my YouTube channel till 2013, but at that point, all my back footage was being posted. I was trying to show people what was going on. So it goes to show the importance of not so quickly dismissing new things and taking a careful look, because had more people got on the bandwagon understanding that that's not normal, who knows where we'd be now. But yeah, man, weather manipulation's a big thing, to the point where the next time a major hurricane hits somewhere, you've got to ask yourself, did nature cause that, or did human beings in this world cause that?
Yes, exactly. I see these really weird clouds outside my house, all these ridged things, and you can just see that they're doing something. And people don't realize.
I'm just going to say,
just above your head.
We don't need to keep harping on about the weather, do we?
Very funny, Astal. But I mean, they're doing this just over top of our heads, whatever they're doing.
Well, it goes to show you, a properly submissive audience, you can do just about any damn thing you want to them, can't you? Right over your head, any day of the week, you can go out and look up. And any given day that I talk about this, there will be people who come in and bring up the contrail thing, which I now agree with them. Yeah, they're absolutely contrails. You're being conned into believing that you're looking at a normal thing. Well, I've been alive since the early 60s. I would state without reservation that up through the early 90s, we had blue skies that was not filled with trails. Sometime in the 90s, that began to change. By the time we got to the new millennium, spraying was rampant. But anyone who wants to understand more, go to my channel, look at my old chemtrail footage. I have filmed more weird things in and around chemtrails than you could ever imagine. Even like this little ball of light shooting some kind of a plasma thing into it. In my view, it's all human tech, but nonetheless, man, this is not normal. These are not normal things you're seeing. And if you have common sense within you, I think you can come to understand this.
Well, definitely with you on that. Can I just say that Flat Earth Dude has joined?
Hey, Crow.
Hey, nice to meet you, man.
Love your work, man. Love your telescope work.
Thank you.
You ever gonna get back on that thing?
Yeah, there will be more coming. I had to move, and I'm responsible for some things I didn't used to be responsible for, and I can no longer lift my rig by myself, but I have help with me here now, so we should see more scope work as we get into the warmer part of the season here.
It's a lot of work to get out there, and
yeah, it won't be to the same degree I once did. I can't sit endless hours night after night, but I've been really missing the film work. It's just not, there's stairs in the house I live in now, and while I could probably lift my scope, it's just not safe.
yeah, those things are heavy. I have a 10-inch Meade. I can barely lift it.
Right. When I had my 8-inch Meade, which was a classic made in the United States back in the 90s with American steel, even that was a challenge. I could do it safely, but by the time I got up to just under the 12-inch Celestron that I have now, Even 10 years ago, it was at the edge of my ability to safely do, and I quickly required help. And so I'm just not willing to risk it, because dropping something like that is an expensive accident.
Hey, can I just say, I love your icon, Flat Earth Dude.
Thank you.
Obviously, this is the first time I've actually talked to you, isn't it? You've been in our chat room masses, and I appreciate that very much. But you just said how much you really like Crow, so I added you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Astal.
Yeah, what do we call you? Do we call you Flat Earth Dude?
Just dude's fine. Dude.
Dude. All right, dude.
What's up, dude?
I'm with that. I'm with that.
Hi,
dude.
Call me Astral.
Hey, all right. I'm just here hanging out. I wanted to say hi to Crow. Love your work with Jason. My goodness. You guys are a great team.
Thanks.
Anybody listening should join Crrow777Radio.com.
It's actually getting to be a lot of work to do that every week, because the censorship of information access is so tightened. Every week we feel like it gets a little harder to get valid information, to the point where I am once again collecting books, believe it or not, for a lot of my research. At any given time, there's 5 or 6 books on my bed, the oldest stuff I can get my hands on. But that's a good thing, man. We're all headed for a time. I imagine sometime there will be a day when the last library closes its doors. And that will be a sad day, man, because books can't be edited in the same way Google will edit a web page.
That's
so
true.
are you saying that even for your radio show, you're completely censored?
No.
On the first hour that goes out on YouTube, I'm subject to all the same censorship anyone is, but what we tend to do is speak in code in the first thing, so it's plausibly deniable, but we say whatever the hell we want in the second hour, because that's on my private website. But even then, we're not free here. The ISPs just got handed a lot more power by the rule changes in this country, and even recent things I've had to do with the website let me know. I called up my ISP, and every single person who answered the phone when they said, "What's your website that we're talking about?" had heard of me. How is it possible to call an ISP and everyone there know your name? Almost like you're on some kind of a list or something, you know? How can it be? There's not that many people that would be, you know, young people that would be tuned in to my podcast, I would estimate. I mean, I do have young people, but most of the people are from 30 to 60. That's the biggest majority of my market share.
I was saying, for your radio station, you just said that you're censored there. Is it so? It's just as bad being on the radio station as being on here, then?
Well, it's a podcast, to be fair. It's called Crrow777 Radio. I don't know if I was being clear. We're basically talking about a website that is hosting privately a podcast. The first hour goes on YouTube, and then the whole entire show gets posted for membership away from censorship.
Right. Yeah. Flat Earth Dude, is there any other questions you'd like to ask as you've come on?
Yes, I would. Crow, are you ever going to have another guest on your podcast?
We have done the guest thing. Having guests is a double-edged sword. Some of the most popular shows that I have done have been with guests, later to find out that the guest we had on was not doing things that were helpful, things that I don't approve of, and then you start to inherit some of that nonsense. Then there have been other times when the veracity of the guest came into question later. So the short answer is sure. I'm sure we will have other guests in the future, but we have very, very strict rules about how anyone will ever get on our show. In other words, if someone emails me and says, "I want to be on your show," don't even bother, because I'll put you in the no list immediately. And that's not to be mean to people. It's that we try to maintain a standard. And so even like people like Greg Carlwood, one of the earliest people to interview me, I remember back in the day, something like 10 people had emailed him saying, "Hey, you got to get a hold of this Crow guy." And he had told me a similar thing, that he works diligently to try to decide who's going to come on and not. So yes, we will have guests, but mostly Jason and I will try to deliver content as much as we can.
Excellent.
Yes, I kind of understand what you mean about all that myself, as we've been a channel. Some people are not who they say they are.
You never know until you do.
Never know.
You just don't want to be associated with them. That's what you mean, isn't it?
Well, you know how people are. If you have them on your show, then they act like your brothers, right? You know, and that's not really true. But nonetheless, if people sneak under the wire or just legitimately come on and then do ridiculous things, it's not helpful. And you feel backlash from these things. And that's why I don't join groups. I don't need backlash. I try to do the best I can as an individual. And if I make a mistake, I'll be on the next day saying, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I did the best I could. My bad. But when you have other people on who are doing God knows what, it's not so easy to pedal that back.
Well, very much appreciate you coming on our channel. So thank you so much for that.
All right. Well, I'm sorry I put you off so long, but I had real problems with the volume of traffic on the Crrow777Radio.com website that I was dealing with. It was so nice to meet all of you. Thank you for being kind, and thank you for giving me the time on this platform.
Oh, it's
Nice
an
to meet
absolute
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, Crow.
Yes, thank you so much. Does anybody else want to ask? Jay, have you got any questions to ask?
Thanks.
Astral?
I just want to say thanks as well. Sorry.
Well, hopefully it's not going just yet, but yeah, it's an honor to have you on here. Jay, do you want to say something then? Jay?
Yeah, I feel like we have a lag. Feels like the gentleman wanted to say something, but we didn't. There he is.
I think
Yes.
you can't.
Can you hear me?
There he is. There he is. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on then, Jay. Oh,
Sorry, who's talking? I'm sorry.
Oh, it is a
go
big
on,
lag.
Jay.
Me?
Yes,
Yeah,
go on
it's a-
then.
Okay.
must be
sorry,
behind
I
us,
just
Jay.
wanted to say,
Oh, he hasn't got a very good connection, has he?
That's what's yeah.
Jay,
I'm sorry, man. Am I cutting him off?
yeah,
the
you're a little
the
bit.
connect- Yeah,
It's a
we
little
can't
bit
hit.
floaty.
Yeah. I wanted to say about the crow symbolism. Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead. He's going to ask me about my name. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay,
go
sorry.
on, Jay.
Yeah, the crow symbolism is what helped me to really wake up. So this is very. I'm sorry, Karen.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
What
Leave
was
and
that?
come back.
Okay.
Well, I got part of what he said.
Her
He
name is
said-
Raven Wilkinson. She was the first African American ballerina, and her name Raven relates to the Corvus constellation. Oh,
Jay, you've broken off again.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can't hear anything. Well, I think he was talking about the symbolism of my name helping him out, and he was pointing to another individual named Raven that was related. There's a constellation in the sky that is a crow called Corvus. So I think that's what he was getting ready to talk about, but I didn't get most of that.
No, he's back now. But we can't hear him.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's 1:35 my time here on the East Coast, and I've got a few things I've got to accomplish. Can we make one more run? Is there anything else we'd like to address before I get on with my day here?
I
Oh,
want
we've
to ask you.
already. It's gone really quickly, the time. Anyway, go on, Horry.
Have you already covered Crow? Did you start up a new channel, or did you go to a website? Did you talk about where we could find your stuff? Because I know you got messed with. I know your channel was taken down, and I remember you getting on Ty Gorton's hangout and kind of talking about it, and then he got zapped, which you guys didn't even start talking. Y'all got zapped.
Yeah, but wait a minute, man. What happened to Ty Gorton? I've been reaching out to him, and he's just disappeared. And I almost felt like I had done something wrong. I totally lost contact, and I got no responses.
No, you know what? He was kind of semi-regularly keeping up with me and kind of telling me what's going on, and I have not heard from him in a while. I just finished reading the magazine. I've been reading it savoring it like a box of chocolates or something for a long time. Finally read it, finished to front and back, and But I was just about to reach out to him, so I'll ask what he's up to, and if I find out, you know,
Yeah, have him send me a damn email, man. Him and
him.
Louis both. I wrote an article for episode 1, and I submitted an article for the 2nd edition, which has never come out. But I'm sorry, you started to ask me a different thing. If you could just tell Ty, ping a brother, and let me know you're alive. I mean, I started to feel like I had done something wrong. But anyhow, yes, my YouTube channel was taken down for 3 weeks. It was an effort to clear me out of search returns. Before they took me down, there were millions of returns on Crrow777. Now there's only thousands. My channel is back. So many followers complained, I assume, they put my channel back online, which is Crrow777, Crrow777 on YouTube. My private website, which was put up because of the censorship, is Crrow777radio.com, and there are 2 R's in Crow. So it's Crrow777radio.com. The first hour, there are over 100 hours of free content posted there that need no login. If you want to become a member, then you get both hours. What you're actually supporting in membership is free speech. We say whatever the hell we want in that 2nd hour, and nobody can tell us any different. So there's all that, and thank you, man. Please do tell Ty. Let me know what the heck's going on here.
Okay, I'll reach out to him. I'll tell him you're looking for him too. And Karen B in the chat said to you that a lot of people are looking for him. So
I think something happened at first. I thought I must have done something to offend somebody, which was surprising because I don't do that in my life. But then as I started to reach out to Louis, the editor, I was getting nothing from nowhere. So I do feel like something's happened.
That's alarming. I'll certainly send an email myself.
All right.
Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate what you do. I hope you keep it up. Keep up the great work, buddy.
I'll go as long as I can go, man.
But your channel's back okay now, isn't it?
It is. We are assuming, and I'm making an ass out of you and me by assuming, but we assume so many followers complained that they put it back up. But we now also understand that when YouTube takes out a channel and they leave it down for 2 or 3 weeks, what they're doing is they're purging search returns all over the world, because all those dead links from a popular channel get removed from DNS servers. That's not really the right word, but they get removed from servers as dead links. And then when they put you back up, as in my case, 16 million returns on Crrow777 down to 6,000 the day I came back, and roughly around 60,000 now. And if you search Lunar Wave, you get maybe 1 million returns. If you put Crrow777 in Lunar Wave, it goes down into the thousands again. So it's just another way of censorship by feeble little weak minds.
They took everything off. They gave you your channel back, but they didn't put all the links back.
What they did is they took control over search returns and purged. Like, before they took me out, there were, I don't know, thousands, many, maybe hundreds of thousands of people had linked my content and written blogs about me. When they took the channel down, all those links became dead links. They left me down for 3 weeks, and over time, those are recognized as dead links and quit getting searched. So that's basically what we have deduced has happened. It is a bunch of feebly weak chicken, you know what, people out there trying to censor because they're afraid of the truth, basically.
Well, keep going, and we very much appreciate the fact that you do.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all.
All right, Crow. Belief is the enemy of knowing.
It is, in fact.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for today.
Thank you so much for coming on Sun and Moon, and it was really nice to meet you.
All right. Cheers, man. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Love you, Crow.
You too.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, that's a pleasure.
I really appreciate that.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, I'll come back on again. I got to run to the store real quick, but Horry, Jay, Patricia, Astal, Karen, thank you all.
Hey, buddy. Take care.
Oh, thank you. I love your icon.
Thank you. I'll be listening while I'm at the store. So big shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you, guys.
Take it easy, dude. Take it easy, dude.
And I'll come back on again at some time, I hope.
Sure. Thank you. That's
Bless
great.
You all.
Yeah,
Bless you all.
have you on. And thank you so much for all your support in the chat room, by the way, because you're in there quite a lot and you support our group.
I love you guys, man. You guys blow my mind. You never know Russian Vids or Jay. All you guys are just amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you, my darling. Yeah. I didn't think that Crow would stay on too long, but that was amazing, wasn't it? He's a really nice guy.
That was cool. I'm glad he's stopping on other streams and talking with everybody and networking. You know, we see a lot of people in the just in the flat Earth community and truth seeking community that they're big names, but they haven't started getting into the smaller little group hangouts. And now we see Russian Vids making rounds to channels like ours, and now here's Crrow777, and he's been doing that for a while. And it's just good to see this networking happening. It's a lot of intelligent people with their own expertise that they have to bring to the table, networking on a deeper and deeper level. I mean, look, when Jaron and Rob Skiba, you know, first had a talk, I heard them say, "Wow, you know, we've been, you know, kind of all around each other, but now we're finally talking." And I mean, that's kind of like, it was an eye-opening thing for me to see. That, you know, everybody's kind of all around each other. We know of each other already long before we finally have a, you know, a Google Hangout. And that's just a beautiful thing to see everybody getting, you know, more personal. It's cool.
Can I just add something on that? I think it's important as well that we are all, you know, connecting still, regardless of who we are or where we're from or what we represent. Making these connections is an important part of like our knowledge and our learning, you know, and we're all, as I say, every day learning, aren't we?
We all have a piece of the puzzle.
I yield the floor.
We all have a piece of the puzzle, don't we? And we gotta share that so we can put the damn puzzle together.
Yeah, and basically everything he talked about was everything that we talk about in Flat Earth.
Mm-hmm. He might not be a full Flat Earth believer, but boy, he knows that everything isn't as we've been taught.
Yeah.
You know, and that's good enough.
I don't think he felt like he wants to be Crrow777 rather than Flat Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's fine, because he knows something's up, and that's all I'm pushing people to see. He sees it.
Yeah. Jay, do you want to say anything? Is Jay there, or has he got a mic problem? Jay.
Hey, if he doesn't come back, I want to propose something. I need some feedback from everybody in the chat. Oh, 133 people watching the chat. Look at this. Cool. All right, everybody, please vote if you can, or put a comment in the chat if you're familiar with my show and what I do. I'm doing, you know, the Flat Earth Digest live, so it's the old show format. But I don't know what people like more. Do they want to hear me talk about some stuff and kind of run through a lot of different things, or do you guys like put a number 1 for that if you want me to run through more material faster? But put a number 2 if you'd rather see me play a minute or 2 or 3 minutes of a clip that I've briefly talked about. So maybe like more of me briefly introducing a clip and playing it. See, type of number 2 if you'd rather that. And if you just like a mix of both, press number 3. Let's see what we get, because I'm not sure what people like. I'm gonna make a new video on my channel and get people to vote.
Number 2.
Got a number 2, so people like to see the content a little bit while I talk to it. Okay, we've got 2 2s. So I'm gonna put out a little video as well, and people will get to vote in the comments. But
I like number 3.
Number 1, number 4. We've got 2, a 1, and a 4.
So everybody
Someone
wants.
says, I don't know. 3.
Everybody, yeah. Look, 2, 3, 420. All right, I like Chris's number. I should have added that. 5, guys. Everybody likes the mix. Okay, all right. So it doesn't really matter. I just got to do it. That's what I'm getting. Just got to do it.
It sounds like hard work.
I just try to, you know, make the best of it. It is hard work, but I don't know what people want. You know, I just,
you know,
got these.
Just have fun. You know, it's just have fun. That's all I say. You know, I mean, just have fun. Always have fun. And if you start taking it too seriously, then it's it's no longer fun, is it?
Oh yeah, I have to walk that line. Believe me, I've crossed that line and made it work a few times. And no, I don't want to do that. I'm familiar with that. But I found out tonight that I can take a regular video of myself doing whatever I want, and I don't have to do any special green screen removal or nothing. I can stick it right in OBS using my like professional camera. I thought about having some skits where I'm, you know, in costume, like talking to myself or something, or just something funny. Like I'm trying to come up with ideas, you know, because it was much easier to make an entertaining part of the show when I could, you know, edit it beforehand. But I'm trying to do this kind of stuff live, so it should be interesting. Whatever I come up with.
Horry, Karen B says, just do you.
Just do you, huh? Yeah,
Just be you. Yeah. Oh wow. I'm sort of I'm still on a rush. Woo. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. The time went really quickly. It didn't feel like well, he suppose he was there for nearly an hour and 3/4. In fact, he wasn't. We've been very lucky because he was there for half an hour before we went live, so we got to chat to him for half an hour before. So in fact, he was there for 2 hours. Yeah.
Awesome.
Astal, did you enjoy that? Patricia? Hi, Lev. He's just gone, by the way, Crow.
Yeah, I figured. Hello. It went well, didn't it?
Sorry, I was coughing. I've got a bit of a cold. Yeah, I enjoyed him. Obviously, he's like a storyteller, isn't he? You know, his delivery is just fantastic, and all he has to say. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying I believe everything he has to say, but he speaks a lot of truth, and that's the important thing. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Very good.
Yeah. In fact, I had written down all these questions. We did get through rather a lot, all the questions. So we kind of were at the end of the questions. It was nice to see Flat Earth Dude as well. We've not actually had a hangout with him, and but he's always in the chat room, as I said. Patricia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you enjoy that?
I did, yeah. It's nice when you get other people's views and opinions on things, because you never know, they might actually trigger something off in yourself. You think, oh, I never thought of that, you know, and it's nice. You know, we might not agree on everything, you know, with anybody, but it's just nice. It's just nice to have someone so, I don't know. I love the telescope thing. I've got a telescope, but I'm struggling with it at the minute. But I want to start looking at the moon and stuff, and the stars at night. You know, so I like that side as well. But it's all good. It's all good. I yield the floor.
If everybody doesn't know, that's Dojo Times who started that one. But he gets into full floor, so then he goes, I yield the floor. And you go, because he just suddenly stops. He's lovely, Dojo. Yeah, have we got anything else we'd like to talk about? Because obviously today isn't a day we usually come on. We've had this amazing talk with Crrow777. I don't think Jay's there. Jay, he's stuck there. He didn't have a very good Wi-Fi. Lev, is there anything you want to say?
I can't think off the top of my head. I've got to go soon, so did anybody mention the flying craft that Crow caught?
No, I think what it was is we were in full force, and then I did say thank you very much, and I think he thought that was the leaving moment, when actually it wasn't. I could have talked to him for a lot longer. So yeah, that was one question. I answered all mine. I forgot about that one.
I recommend it to the viewers then. You know what I mean? It's a good video. It's like a craft with 3 engines flying in front of the moon, which is caught with his camera. Really cool. So it's about 4-year-old though, so you have to dig through his old videos.
Okay, thank you for that, Lev. Astral, what were you going to say? Astral. Oh, I always love this bit when I look at the panel and I can see nearly everybody's muted. Astral, you're
Sorry, I just
muted.
got back if you were talking to me.
Oh, one second,
Yeah.
Horry. I'll come to you, but I'm just Astral.
No, I'm good. I'm good. You know, it's interesting. It's always interesting to have guests like that. You know, of that magnitude. Dare I say that? But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. You know, what I mean, like I say, we need to connect as each of us has, like Horry says, a piece of the puzzle. You know, and it's good for us all to learn. Yeah, that's all. I yield the floor.
Okay, Horry.
Nothing really new here. Just
Yeah, you didn't think when you stayed up all night today that you were going to be talking to Crow, did you?
no, that was a real treat. I'm glad I met Russian Vids and Crow this week on your channel. It's hot. It's hot stuff over here. I like it. I'm gonna be talking about you on the first Flyers Digest Live coming up. I'm gonna talk about all the names, big names that you've had on your channel, and try to get some more eyes on your channel as well. And
I know.
I'm excited.
Oh, Horry, it's so sweet of you to do that.
Yeah, you've been good to me, Karen. I got to do it more. So it's gonna happen, baby.
Oh, the feeling's mutual, though. I mean, I remember you did something about Sun and Moon, and I was saying, look. I mean, you've helped us as well, and you're a good friend, aren't you?
Yeah, we all help each other. That's what I like. That's what I like over here.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a bit apt, really, as you said to me this morning that you were going to do something about like the guests on Sun and Moon. That you actually are one of the guests with Crow on Sun and Moon today. So you can that's even better way to talk about it, maybe, because you're actually part of the panel.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm glad.
Do you know what I mean? Like on Sunday you'll be talking about it, but today you're part of it.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm like, I'm gonna talk about all the cool stuff that you do, and I'm just really grateful that you offer everybody a voice. You have a good variety. That's the whole point of why I like it here. You talk about all kinds of stuff, all truth related. You hit on a lot of things, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I think if we started off a bit more with a sort of as a square flat Earth group, but over time all the map makers have just been all weird, and then we decided that we'd rather go with the people. That seemed the most important thing, because you could be arguing forever about what shape it was or whatever, but we still have to live here, and to move forward it had to be with the people. So that's what this is about for us now, is trying to unite the people and be part of a family in as best way as possible, considering most of us don't live in different countries or different time zones, but a place where we give people a chance to talk.
You've been doing very well with that. A great variety, intelligent people, very, very good conversations.
Yeah, I'm quite amazed. I must admit, though, I have not heard anything from Russian Vids since he's lost that second channel. I mean, he was emailing me all the time. Just asking you, when they take down your channel, do you lose your email as well?
Not if it's like, a Gmail account or something. You lose the ability to, message that channel because it's not there anymore, but not your email, no.
I didn't think so. It's just that he just doesn't seem to, he's a bit fed up right now. I don't know, but it was someone that was there all the time talking to me for the last few weeks, and since his channel's gone down, he's gone very quiet. But he actually said, I think it was probably on an after hangout, he said, I'm not holding bars, a bit like what Crrow777 said. I'm me, I'm going to do it my way. I don't know how long my channel's going to be up for anymore. And then a couple of hours later, his channel had gone. But I think he did start re-uploading some of the stuff from the past, so we know what that's about, which we can't talk about. So I kind of wondered myself how long they would let him go for.
I don't know, man. But you know, I sometimes take breaks too. Sometimes I'm gone for a whole week, so we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe, you know, some of us need to go onto these other channels and have odd things, but, you know, yeah, I'm not sure. You know, there's other places to go, isn't there? But we've been going for 2 hours now, and today was an extra day because Crow was coming on. So I think we'll probably end the hangout now, but we're back tomorrow with Angel. And yeah, we've got a few other people, like on Monday, Bling Bling, who's in the chat room, she's coming on. And then next Sunday, we've got John Cowrie again, and he's the English gentleman who's been in Silbury Hill, the pyramid that's up the road from me. So he's coming on to talk a bit a week Sunday. Yeah, anyway, it's a big thank you to everybody in the chat room and everybody that's watched this and everybody that's going to watch this. Big flat earth hugs to everybody. And it's good afternoon, good morning, good evening from us.
Same to you,
So
Karen.
everybody,
Much love.
yeah.
Much love to you on the chat and then in the hangout.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, everybody, as well. If you can hear me, I think I'm a bit quiet, but thank you.
Loud and clear.
Patricia?
Yeah, I got there before you.
Yeah, I know, poor you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks everybody for listening, and I want to say my usual. I love you all. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to do it on behalf of Jay now. On the count of 3, what are we? 1,
Dancer.
2, 3. We
are
dancers.
Dancers, I was too late.
Oh, so
That's for you,
early?
Jay.
Coming up all night. I'm delirious at this point.
Oh, anyway, thank you everybody, and see you tomorrow. Bye everybody.
Bye, Karen. Bye.
See you all.